And welcome back to the True Patriot podcast, folks. In our interview series here, we have a special set of guests tonight. We have with us the 2022 Colorado Nation Bassmasters State Champion, Miss Eric Allee. Leslie, welcome to the podcast.
Hello.
And with her is her devoted support system, but hang on. He was the reigning 2021 Colorado Nation, Colorado Kayak Bassmasters State Champion. You guys got like a pair of championships. Eric, welcome to the show.
Thanks. We're definitely happy to be here. And she's had me call her champ ever since the tournament. So.
Yeah.
As you should.
Yeah. I have to be champ around the house.
Heck yeah. From here on out. I mean, that's just like, that's going to stick. It should be on the side of your kayak from now, champ. I know
she's got something else to add with her duck.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, the lucky duck. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, listen, thank you guys so much for joining us here, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, super stoked.
So this is in a series. You guys, one of the cool things about this, and just get this right out in the open, one of the things that I have loved about joining the kayak community so much is the certain dynamics, the community, the people. But I am seeing this more in the kayak side, the husband and wife competitive duos running around out there. I absolutely love this. I think this is phenomenal. And normally, you look for the weak link out there. You guys, there's no weak links. I mean, neither one of you are going to kick our butts, depending on whatever system we go to here. Now, Eric, you've been doing this for a hot minute. I mean, you've been around the game. Leslie, for competition wise, you're relatively, you're still kind of a few years in, right?
So this season with this kayak club was my first season with them that I won. Yeah. But I would say I got on the water in a kayak probably 3 seasons ago.
Yeah.
Three. Well, it was my third time competing on the water, in the clubs or whatever.
But the thing that's interesting is when was the first time you were ever in a kayak and fishing?
2020.
But it was in a tournament. It was like your first or second time.
My first time in the first time I was ever in on the water was actually in a tournament. It was a multi-species tournament at Pueblo, right?
Yeah.
That is awesome.
18th or something like that. So yeah.
So I would fish initially. I would fish the bass side and the multi-species stuff that you have on the CKFC, the Colorado Kayak Fishing Club.
Yeah.
I thought that was better for her to start. But she's so competitive and she learns so quickly that she wanted to start fishing bass events. And I was like, well, dear, I'm nuts when it comes to fishing tournaments. Like I have to be there at a certain time. I have a game plan. I have to pre-fish.
I can't be by you. I can't watch you. Like I'm going to tell everybody to make sure to keep an eye on you. How a husband would.
But the gist of it is, I love you. I love you with all my heart, but on game day, you're on your own. And it's always been that way.
Yep.
And I didn't tell him I appreciate all you're doing, but I'm not going to be around you either, is basically
sure
how I thought about it. But I mean, I appreciate you. Feeling like you have to protect me and stuff. So, but yeah. So this was my rookie season in this club this year.
That is freaking awesome, man. And boy, do I get it. It is. So my wife has come with me one time back in the boat world. We went to Lake of the Ozarks and she came with me. Beautiful area down there. We stayed a little, it wasn't a fancy resort, but it was a little resort right on the lake. I was able to get a boat slip and such. And she came out with me during practice time.
Nice.
And I found myself the whole day more worried and thinking about her because I know for a fact what kind of a grind it can be during practice. And so I literally kind of, altered my practice, quite a bit throughout that because it's like, you know what? It's more important that I do spend time with her out here that we're traveling around. It was a bucket list lake to get to, you know what I mean? It was so gorgeous. It was in the fall. It's like, yeah, this is awesome. But that can be hard. My wife and I have talked about traveling quite a bit more, but the last thing, she totally gets it now that when I'm there, game face goes on in my mind. I have to get in a routine.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of times she's not interested in staying at the hotel or just kind of hanging out by herself, that sort of thing or whatever. That's just not for her. So yeah, we're still trying to figure out see if we can find additional friends that she can, James's wife is always around out there. Maybe she can, buddy up with him.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I think it's taken from the time I showed interest in being on the kayak to now for us to figure out our own vibe,
Yep.
we have our trailer. I have my tackle, which is very simple in a cube, my 4 rods or whatever. And then he has his tons and tons and tons of tackle. And it takes him tons of time to get ready. And he's always in a hurry. And I always just kind of have to feel the water out and kind of look at the environment and be ready, maybe eat some breakfast or whatever. But it took to this point for him to see that I can just set up my own stuff.
That's awesome.
Do your thing. Yeah. I'd actually rather it be that way.
It's to say it's been difficult would be an understatement, not because of her.
Sure.
Because of me. So like a week before a tournament, to be honest, I don't want to talk with anybody. I want to study maps. I want to organize.
He likes to pre-fish.
Yeah. I want to organize tackle. I want to pre-fish. I want to game plan. I want to do all these things. And I want to be on the water the second we can launch. I want to launch.
Yep.
Now, my sweet lady right here next to me, she is indifferent on launch time most of the time. And it's one of the reasons, like if I was analyzing, it's one of the reasons why she's so dangerous.
Yep.
For instance, at Pueblo this year, my game plan when it comes to fishing, I always want to get away from people. It's always my thing. So I see a bass boat pull up on a spot. And I'm thinking, how is this guy already here? You know what I mean? Like, we don't have to get inspected like they do. What's going on? And I'm already like building excuses. And in my head, I'm already spinning. Right.
Right.
And then later on in the day, after the tournament's over and I get to talk to Leslie, after I launched, she went to the bathroom. What else did you do?
Ate some breakfast.
So she won the state championship. And when did you launch?
Probably about 7:30. Well, I get really bad motion sickness. So it was a little bit windy that morning, and I knew I had to rig 2 of my rods, and I knew if I got on the water, I was going to get sick right away, So I thought, I'll just eat my breakfast, drink my coffee, rig my rods or whatever. And then the sun came up and then I kind of launched or whatever.
And meanwhile, I'm already spinning.
He's already.
I'm already like.
You've been fishing for an hour and going crazy.
Yeah, Leslie. There's no salt in these wounds right here because I was one of the guys you kicked my butt out there like thoroughly. So yeah. It's good to know that you were just like chilling like a villain out, on the shore.
I have to connect to everything and feel, what's going on.
Yeah.
Especially like that's why I tell him he loves to pre-fish. I don't like to pre-fish because it messes up my vibe. Like I have to get on the water that day and see, is it clear? Is it, like how deep is it? What's going on over here? Is there grass? Is there wheat? You know what I mean? And I don't want to know that ahead of time because by the time you get there, if it's a week later, something can shift or be different. So
now, let me ask a serious question on this.
Yeah.
I agree with you, Eric, 100%. That Zen approach she's taken is, guys like us have been doing this for a lot of years and we're trying to find that balance.
Mm-hmm.
But could a lot of this also be with the fact that you've been to a lot of these lakes and seen a lot of these? Would you do this, say, on a lake you've never been to whatsoever, never seen it, tournament morning, that's your first time on the ramp? Are you still approaching the same way?
I'm going to do it in March at Lake Chickamauga for sure. Yeah.
No kidding. That's a classic.
I'm not going to go in clueless. I'm going to study up where the boundaries are and stuff like that. But
sure.
Such a big lake, but it's still a fishery and it's still fish, it's still bass. So when I get on the water, I still have to look at structure and depth and temperature and where are my friends going to be.
Yep.
So, I mean,
Dude, she's so dangerous.
The fact that she just called them her friends.
Yeah.
You know, we're talking our ripping lips. She's like, oh, over here.
Yeah. Anytime it's funny, you guys were talking about how you take your picture. So I catch the fish and remove the hook immediately, obviously, and then put them in my net and let them hang out in the net. And then I prepare for the picture or whatever, you know, and then when you're ready to let the fish, I always say thank you and let them go. You know what I mean?
That's awesome.
That's my vibe.
Yeah, she's super, super dangerous. It's one of those things. The vibe doesn't change based on the results either. Like, she goes out to be the best that she can be. She's not competing against us.
Right.
And it's this thing. It's like, you can't beat somebody that has a mentality like that, because there is no losing. There's only winning. And it's something that, like, I've tried to learn from her every time out. And it's super, super hard to do, because it's that competitive thing where she's got friends, right? Like you just said, like I'm out there, and even when it's going good, I overanalyze. Like, if I win a tournament, but I dump a single fish, that's what I think about.
Yep.
When she's done with the tournament, it's the self-satisfaction of knowing she did her best in the moment, and there's not this replay that we have. You know what I mean? Where you or I might be replaying every single moment. Leslie's not thinking about it anymore. She's moved on to the next thing, and her natural ability to break down water without all the aids that we have. Like, I've just a little comparison. You know, I fish out of a pro angler. I've got an HGS7, a carbon unit. I've got active target. I've got a 0.1. That way I know exactly where my bow's pointed at all times. I've got 8 rods rigged and ready to go. I have, I'm a big man, and I probably have as much tackle as I weigh in my kayak. My wife has a converted ice unit, a Garmin, a 5-inch Garmin. We got the open water transducer. I don't even think it has downscan. Does it have downscan?
I don't think so.
She uses it for depth and water temperature more than anything else.
Yeah.
She has 4 rods, 3 or 4 Plano boxes, and 1 bag of plastics. But the natural ability to break down water and figure out what fish are feeding on without a hurry. I've been teaching fishing a very long time. You know, and most of the time when you're teaching somebody fishing, it's like, here, put on a Senko and go have fun.
Yep.
But her ability to learn at a pace, I don't know if people are going to think I'm crazy for saying this, but like, it kind of reminds me of Amart a little bit, with the natural ability and just
right.
Thing. Yeah, she doesn't know who he is.
I don't know who that is.
He's a legend. He was identical age, born the same year I was, and just passed away. I think 2021 was that the year that he passed away. He was a natural. There's probably no other angler that was just more naturally in tune with his surroundings. Was Amart. Yeah. Loved by everyone.
Yeah. Quickly could break down water, quickly made adjustments. And
whooped people with the drop shot, Leslie, like you did to us.
Yeah. And the funny thing is I don't know if you told the story about the last fish, the winning fish that I caught. I think it was 15 minutes before the end of the tournament. I ran out of the color I needed of the bait I was using, and all I could think in my head was him, because going back a little bit, when the pandemic happened is when I got into fishing.
Awesome.
So it's when we first got together and we were locked in together and there was nothing else to do. So he would just talk to me about fishing. And it was just so intriguing to me. And I would listen to every story about every river and every lake and every opportunity he had and what fish did this and I just soaked it all in, right? And then when we started getting out on the water, then I just started learning and mapping and taking it all in. So he's always told me, you'll never understand, because I always tell him, why do you need to buy 10 of those? Like, I don't understand why you need to buy 10 of those packages. And he goes, you're going to figure that out when you run out of the color you need and the bite is hot and you don't have any more. You're going to understand that. So I'm on the kayak. It's like 15 minutes till the end of the tournament. And, you know, at that point, everything's shut off. You can't see what's happening.
Right.
I'm going, you know, I've been here before. I've been in first place before, and then I get beat at the end. And I'm just like, oh my God, I don't have any more of the color I need. You know, what am I going to do? And so the color I was using was like a baby bass color shad, you know? And so I looked in my hatch and I had my Sharpie marker for our identifiers, you know, and I thought, earlier in the day, I saw a shad float by and it was silver and it had the little black kill spot and all that. And I thought, okay, well, I have ghost color shads, you know, bait in here. And I colored its back and I drew big circles on the side of it. And then I threw it in there and sure as crap, just wham, I got the winning fish within the last 15 minutes on this colored, you know, bait. But I remember him saying
that was ringing off in your head.
I'll never understand till you run out. But he also taught me how to color things too. So there's that.
But again, going back to natural ability, I would have overthought the situation because of Sharpie, negative scent. It's too artificial.
Yep.
Which is why in my hatch I have all the different spike it markers.
Yep.
Tons of them. But it's a natural ability, and I don't want to discredit all the work that she's put in. Like, I mean, she's a stick for sure. And the other thing that's funny is, like, you know, talking with the guys at work and stuff. This goes back a couple years. I would go into work, and you know, everybody I work with, they fish too, and I would say, you know, my wife kicked my butt at Horsetooth. And at first, I think they thought I was trying to be cute,
right?
And it's like, I'm not trying to be cute.
Yeah.
Like, I was trying, and she was whooping me, and it's happened enough to where it's a thing. And now all the guys at work totally understand it. But even in the kayak world, which we're the community's so great, we all know that. But I think at first, when she first started fishing the tournaments, there was this idea that her and I were fishing next to each other or something. Until people started seeing her on the water, because it's legit. Like at Pueblo,
go that way.
I went one way, she went the other way, and we both have an understanding of, okay, we might run into other kayak anglers today, but this is my water and that is your water. Mm-hmm. And that's the way.
We never see each other on the water, like ever. In any of the tournaments, we're always in totally different places.
Yeah, and our approaches are a lot different too. Like
we fish totally different.
She leaves no meat on the bone. She really doesn't. Like, she could fish, I don't know, 100-yard square area all day long, and there's just no meat on the bone. When I first started fishing kayak tournaments, I put one of those little kitchen timers on my on the deck in front of me.
Nice.
I was so fast that I wasn't giving spots enough time.
Yep.
But, yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that very, very proud.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things, speaking of that time, I don't know if you can see it too well. You'll see all the alarms I have.
Yeah.
It's reduced down. I actually, the night before the tournament, I set my series of alarms so that I know that if I'm in an area when this alarm goes off, I know that, okay, it's been a couple hours now. It's been an hour and a half. I need to be moving now if I'm not seeing action. And so that's one of the ways I always remind myself, you know, is the alarm piece there to keep trudging. But, you know, the cool thing that I love hearing about this is, and anybody who's been doing this for any amount of years will attest to this, the things that come natural to you, Leslie, are the things that we still are working to try to figure out. We may have grabbed and have some technical knowledge or have this or that. We've spent all our careers up to this point picking up all that stuff first. You kind of went, yeah, that's pretty. I'll get there. I'm going to take care of the, that natural side of this, the instinct piece, the mental game. Yeah. You keep just being you, and the rest of us are going to be hating it, tournament day. And in actuality, one of the things I was talking with James, iron sharpens iron. Mm-hmm. And in the CKB, we can agree with this. Every one of these people that steps in that realm there is a hook in this state. Yeah. And like we said before, anybody has a shot at winning that, a legitimate chance at winning that is in that, those deals. I love, that aspect of being able to go against that level of competition.
Yeah.
But then finding out just how freaking cool everybody is, in the process of this. That's super awesome. But yeah, that's some impressive stuff, Leslie. That's where you have zenned out with this thing. And you're just going to grab a lot of attention now. There's going to be a lot of people watching you out there.
That's all right. Huh?
Well, and the other part, talking about the things that she grasps so naturally. There's no ego involved with it. So, when you talk about a male-dominated sport, and that's what it is. I mean, I love my sweet lady next to me, but it's a male-dominated sport. Now, is it because there's more dudes and ladies fishing it? I don't know that far, but I do know that ego comes into play with this. Yep. If we're in the trust tree or whatever. So it's like, when it comes to learning new techniques, if it's, swim baits were really big and stuff, like if Leslie doesn't like the way that it feels and it doesn't fit what she's set out that is her, she doesn't mess with it. Like, it's so interesting because it's, for instance, I could be on a hot topwater bite, and if it's something that needs to be done, she'll do it, but she doesn't get swayed by it. So if I'm using a walking bait and I'm catching fish, this is, obviously fun fishing.
Sure.
And, she's catching them on a net or she's catching them on a drop shot. She doesn't care what I'm doing at all.
I do care what you're doing.
Well, but you know what I'm saying? Like it's that thing where if you're in a boat with your buddy and your buddy starts sticking them on a jig, you go, okay, I'm going to put a jig on. Now with her, it's almost the exact opposite, where it's like she's rooting for you. Like if anybody that's fished next to her in a tournament,
you're catching friends.
Yeah.
Friends.
Anybody that's fished next to her at a tournament, she told me this. I don't know if it was Trinidad or where it was, but somebody caught fish next to her and she was cheering them on.
Nice.
Oh no, that was Trinidad, and I was in first place there too. But
yeah. But somebody caught one and you cheered them on.
Pierce beat me in the last 11 minutes. But I had, so it's I don't want to say it's been difficult as a female in the groups, because everybody's been very, very good to me, but I probably tend to get crowded more so, I would think, or whatever. It doesn't bother me at all. You could fish right next to me and it wouldn't bother me. But I had probably about 5 or 6 people around me in that tournament fishing where I was. And then I also had 2 bass boats pitching at me. And I just kind of stood my ground and just kept catching fish right there and kind of taught the guy how to do it and then cheered him on. Yeah. He was kind of, struggling. And I was like, well, if you do this.
So if I'm not in a community hole and somebody gets close enough to me where, I'll
freaks out.
Freaks out. Like it's all in inside.
In his head, he freaks out.
Right. But I'm not going to lie. We're in the trust tree, right? Like, dude, when I'm out in my boat, I've let people know with the square bill where the line is. You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah, but at that point, see, my mind was, I've already broken it down. I figured out the color, the height to put my drop shot. Like I knew exactly where these fish were, and they weren't where I was. So I knew they weren't going to catch my friends.
She was,
my friends.
I was like,
they can get their own friends.
I'm on this structure and I worked it all morning and I know exactly what they want. So I just continued to catch fish there and they weren't there. I mean, it wasn't.
To give this a little more context, how long have you been fishing, just period, not even kayak fishing, just fishing?
Well, I mean, I fished as a little girl with my dad.
Yeah, but I'm talking like bass fishing, like what you do now. How long? When did we start?
2020.
She started in 2020, and
Yep.
she had the spot within the spot.
Yeah.
It's just that thing where it's like, and I would love to be like, yeah, well, I helped her with this and this. Dude, it's natural ability. There's something, and it's her connection with the water or whatever it is it's different.
She has that vision piece that isn't clouded from all the other crap. It's almost, and I mean this in the highest possible compliment. It's like, it's the innocence piece. There's a certain piece that you don't know the certain things that get in your way. Like, with the more information you learn, it clouds your real vision. You still have that real vision, but yet now you're adding into it all the extra stuff,
all the cool things that he knows.
And that's why he keeps calling you dangerous, because he's 100% correct. In a tournament setting, you are a dangerous champ.
I am the champ.
I mean, you think about it, like if I'm a Colorado native, she's a Colorado native, but I've been doing this since I've been knee high to a grasshopper. There's some people that they're like, I started with RC cars and then I played guitar and blah, blah, blah. It's been this for my whole entire life. It's been nothing else. So when I pull up on a spot, I don't know. I'm 42 years old. I'd say I got nuts about fishing when I was 4 or 5.
Nice.
So I have all that information in my head where it's like, and now fishing these tournaments, it's one of those things. I like fishing away from people at every opportunity I get. So for years and years and years, my idea of, fishing wasn't like, hey, let's go to the reservoir and compete. It was, let's find the little local gyms that nobody else knows.
Right.
But I don't know how many years it's been that I've been fishing tournaments. But anyways, what I'm getting at is, let's say I find an offshore hump. I think about the 100 times I've fished the same exact piece of structure and how I caught them in the past. And that's clouding what is right in front of me right there, just purely looking at it situationally, not with, because really that's what kills us.
Right.
History either helps us or it kills us. And she
Agreed.
has this thing, and it's who she is as a human being. So it's like, if it was anybody but Leslie, I would be like, okay, well, I'm kind of worried that, when you get 5 years in, when you get 10 years in, you're going to have the same information downloaded. But dude, when she gets home from a tournament, she's like thinking about work. She's thinking about the kids. She's actually, I'll tell you what she does. She comes home and she's mom. That's it. It shuts off.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
We got 3 teenagers, so,
that keeps you busy.
It's busy, very busy.
And she's patient with them too.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So you touched on something that I want to get your opinion on this, Leslie, just as a competitive female angler here. Allow me to kind of set the stage with this. Our sport, fishing, competitively fishing, regardless of the vessel, is one that doesn't care your age, your race, your sex, your religion. Our sport is an equal playing ground. There is no advantage that, male has over female or female over male. It's one of the things that I love so much about our sport. I wanted to get your opinion on a deal, because as a father of a 24-year-old, very smart, very strong, fierce young lady, I was adamant with her as she grew up that the world is hers to take and to accept nothing less. I wanted her to be powerful and confident. When I see these all female leagues, be it boat or whatever else, it kind of ticks me off. It kind of gets under my skin a little bit, because it's almost as if someone's saying they need to just compete against other gals. And I get offended, and I'm not of the millennial. I'm a triggered. No, I'm not. I most of the time I tell people, calm down. You're reading too far into it. It's like, oh my goodness, we can say things and it doesn't mean that, the whole world is, a group of Nazis, type thing. It's relax. But when I do see that stuff, it it bugs me, I guess is the best word. I'm just like, stop, get in this field where there's real money and go kick their butt all over the place.
Right.
What is your feeling? I mean, on those, are you mixed on? I know you're pretty like overall zen with everything, it appears, but when you see that kind of stuff, what's your feeling on it?
So, I mean, that's a lot of different things we could touch on, but as far as being like in just a club with just females, are you saying would I want to do that, or what do I think about that?
Yeah, like the certain leagues that have, they separate, off just a female league type thing only.
Honestly, the thing I really like about fishing, and I don't know if I've ever talked to you about this, is it's not. It is a physical sport. Don't get me wrong, because I mean, obviously, when you get off a kayak, at the end of the day, you're wiped. And I don't know how I'm going to do it for 2 days in a row, but I'm gonna have to work out and get ready for that. But it's really about a few different things. It's about up here, and it's about being at the right place at the right time and being confident. And I don't think that's a gender specific thing. So right. I don't think that it should be, because I do hair for a living. So I have a lot of clients say, well, is this a female group? And I go, no, it's co-ed. I mean, it's just whoever signs up and whoever's in it, and it's all ages, and it's all, different types of people. But yeah, I try to gear away from those types of clubs that are just females.
Yep.
We can even go farther into like branding and stuff. Like, it's really hard just in general to be a female in the fishing industry, because like a lot of the gear is not for us. Like, I'm 5'3", stout, shorter, and I like shorter rods, and I like my Carhartts to not have a place where where men go to the bathroom. Like, I don't want that on my Carhartts. And boots were really hard to find. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And then again, I'm a minority, and I'm also not 20 years old in the industry too. So, I mean, there's a lot. So if someone was smart and wanted to grab on to the situation, I think it's going to change. I think that females in the fishing industry aren't just going to be cooler girls anymore. I think they're going to be actual athletes in this. And I'm actually excited to be a part of it, because I don't have the previous, I don't know, judgment on like different brands and things like that. This is all new to me, and it's all kind of new right now too. I mean, there's some female brands out there, but honestly, I'm kind of, I'm a little sad when I look at their ads and things like that, because it's very catered to a specific, I'm not going to point it out, but it's a specific age. It's a specific.
We all know.
Yeah. I mean, and that's not real. I mean, so. Nope. And I too have a daughter. She's 19 in college, and I've always, she's modest. She's a lady, but she can also handle herself if she needs to. And that's how I look at things. I'm not a man. I'm a woman, and I'm a mother, but I'm also an athlete. So
damn straight.
I think it's gonna start to change.
Well, one of the other things I think is worth pointing out is we're in one of the best, two of the best. Let's be honest. Like, two of the best kayak clubs in the country, where we support each other. Yeah. It's like, dude, if you want to sign up on tournament day, you're going to be supported. If you have a question, you're going to be supported. So the culture that we come from is that it's supportive, it's inclusive, it's really, really great. Yep. And there's a lot of people to thank for that. Unfortunately, I don't think the conditions are the same across the country. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things where Leslie is strong-willed enough to where if somebody came at her cross, she would whoop them. just to like put it out there.
Them up and down. No.
But the thing is like I'm like you. I think that fishing is one of the rare opportunities in life where the things that divide us above the water have no bearing on anything that happens below the water.
Nothing.
But I would imagine that there's some good old boys clubs and things like that,
Sure.
where you know, the same people that support the idea of a cooler girl and all the rest of the stuff, like, and I don't want to get too off topic, but like,
Sure.
we all have a role to play in making it inclusive. Seems like very hippie or whatever, but to make it inclusive and to do that, if how I affect change or try to, being a quiet middle-aged white dude, right, is I do it with how I spend my money. So if somebody runs an ad that is clearly placating on, you know, sexuality or whatever, I don't care what you make, you don't get my dollar anymore. Like,
that.
Well, and Eagle Claw doesn't promote that either.
No, Eagle Claw wouldn't touch that at all. You know, we're a family brand, and we believe. And I don't want to make this about work, but I'll tell you, I'll tell you plain and simple. When if I ask somebody to say, what does an Eagle Claw angler look like, there is no wrong answer, right? Like, it's absolutely everybody, and fishing is that. In Colorado, we're so blessed to have so many amazing people that make all that. Like, dude, I don't care how bad I do at a tournament. I always look forward to talking to everybody afterwards. Like,
Right.
It's always a thing. And I think that what starts to happen is we start looking for that person that's not connecting. And I've seen people grab them in and talk to them and stuff like that. But I think what we have is very special. And I don't know that that's everywhere. You know what I mean?
And touching on the all female type of clubs and stuff like that, those females also need to you can't be one thing and the other. You can't just want to be all female and then join in on the male group also, like, you know, and not allow a male to join in on your group, if that makes any sense.
But so I'm going to very oddly, I'm going to compare this to the NBA, and this is not going to make sense, but you got to stay with me. When I was growing up, I would call it the golden era of basketball. You didn't want to be on the same team as the best. You wanted to beat the best.
Right.
If Leslie was fishing in an all-female circuit, you wouldn't be satisfied, because you, like, even if there was sticks, and there are female sticks, obviously, but you want to beat the best, correct?
Well, and it's always, I do want to beat the best, and I want to beat everybody. No,
I love the Zen, but then now I'm going to take you out.
So this is what it feels like to me. It feels like we're getting, it's like it's like a head start, or it's like we're getting privileges or whatever because we're females or whatever. That to me is like, that doesn't work for me. I don't want, like I told him, he's like, why didn't you let me know you needed more baits or whatever? And I'm like, I don't want to be considered weak, and I don't want to be considered like somebody that can't compete against the best.
She won't. So, and this started early. Like braid de fluoro, uni knot, or whatever knot. Like, yeah. See, I don't even remember. Say it how you say it.
Uni.
So she called it uni knot.
And I too shall now call it the uni knot from here on out.
I know.
Once she learned it, she wouldn't take help with it.
Yeah.
She just very strong will.
Let me do it, and I go, no, I don't want you to do it for me.
Yeah,
that's how he taught me how to during the pandemic. This sounds ridiculous, but we're all locked in because we can't work or whatever. And he got me a spool of line, spool of braid. And he's like, this is how you do it. And I sat there and I did it and I did it and I did it and I did it. I tied knots. That's what I did. I sat and tied knots.
But and that's the other thing. She learns well. She doesn't listen well. So for instance, like,
I listen.
When you think drop shotting, just like 99% of the people on the planet, you think of, you know, a lot of people now, we run fluoro, braid to fluoro, light line, stuff like that. Leslie does not like light line at all. So our local pond, she would drop shot with 17-pound test.
Yeah.
17-pound braid, 17-pound fluoro.
Yeah, it's all about connection. And I don't drop shot. I don't know how you drop shot. I know how you drop shot, but we don't drop shot the same at all. It's all about, I almost dead stick it, and I have to hold my arm straight out and just feel what's going on, you know, or whatever. And if you have this teeny tiny little line, like you can't feel. You can't.
So it's just
I couldn't agree more. I hate
the tiny
the
line. Yeah.
wimpy setups. I have called Colorado fishing finesse or famine.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you this right now. When I went to Pickwick, the Bass Kayak series there, I stayed with two other pros. We were hanging out, and one of the pros came by. Now, mind you, he is a mountain of a human being, Joshua Deal. He's like 6'7", 310. I mean, he's a big boy.
Yeah.
And he's from Georgia. Okay. They don't throw 8-pound tests down in Georgia.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sitting there with my gear, and because I've been Colorado fishing so much, I have learned that all my previous Minnesota size stuff in the Midwest and the Ozarks, I have been crinking. All my baits have been getting smaller and smaller. He comes by and he's like, "Man, do you always throw all this small stuff all the time?" I'm like, 3/8 is not that small. To them, that's dinky stuff, you know. And I'm throwing 1/4 ounce swim jigs now and finesse jigs. You know, that's actually what I killed them on it. Lewis and Clark was a 1/4 ounce finesse jig, but I put a good meaty trailer on it to kind of get me some weight behind it. But no, that is a deal that I too, like most of my leader stuff is like at the smallest I'll go and still feel comfortable is like 10-pound. You know, it's most time it's 12 or whatever.
Well, it just depends on the situation. Like I've gone as light as 5, and I ran 5.
Gracious.
I think it was.
You caught a tiger muskie.
Yeah,
like 5.
Yeah, I got the tiger muskie on 6, but in a tournament situation
on accident.
So
I'll break the stuff setting the hook.
Yeah. But I mean, it's that thing though. When you build a system, like we all have our comfort zones, and I'll tell you, I got finesse because of tournaments.
Yep.
You know, fun fishing. I would fish jigs. I would fish all the stuff that we love to fish because I love putting the wood to them.
Yep.
But then the first tournament that I fished with CKFC was at Boyd, and I actually got lucky. I tied for first with Scott Brands, but I caught my limit in 7 casts with the spinnerbait.
Wow.
So it was just it was awesome. And then the next tournament I had at Pueblo, and I sucked. And it was that thing that I figured out something at the end of the tournament, but it didn't like click all the way yet. So then I'm such a competitive person that I was like, all right, I'm going to study everything that I have to. You know, I drop shotted and stuff before, but I went really deep into it. I went deep into drop shotting my way, not your way. Ned rigs and stuff like that. And I pushed the limit on both sides. Mm-hmm. I want something that separates me from the crowd. You know, we don't have big water. We're going to be around the same position. So I would go as light as I could. I would see how that felt. I broke a fish off at Horsetooth. I can't remember. I ended up taking second in that tournament, and it really left a bad taste in my mouth. So I bumped up a little bit. But then I'd watch her go heavy. And I found middle ground somewhere around 8 or 10.
Yep.
But I do think there's a time and place where if your system's built for it, which, a more limber rod, all the different things, loose drag, you can land anything on super light line.
Totally.
It's just super uncomfortable.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's that thing. Strawbridge, Trinidad, this is like 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. I saw him fighting a fish off the boat ramp, and I don't know how light he goes, but I could tell you either he was hooked into a wiper or he was fishing really light line, and he had to work it for a while to get it up.
Yep.
And I think that's another reason it sounds like I'm a Colorado fan of all things Colorado, but that's one of the reasons why the anglers here travel so well. That's why we're dangerous. Cause if you think about the tournament season, you probably caught them on a jig. You probably caught them on a Texas rig. You probably caught them on walking baits or a whopper plopper or something like that. But you've also had to get proficient with either a drop shot or a Ned rig to be competitive. Yep.
Ned rig is the choice I've always gone with. I need to go out with you guys and have you guys school me on the drop shot. Cause I literally, I'll rig it up. I'll be meticulous about how I rig it. Make sure I get my tail, tail piece through the right way. So my hook set's just nice. And about an hour in to the day, I'm cutting it off my pole and I'm re-rigging it because my style of fishing is that of power fishing. I enjoy moving baits. I enjoy enticing the reaction strike, looking. I wanted to make a point on it. It's awesome when I hear stories about, heavier line drop shotting working. There's a guy on the All-American series who is one of the, he ended up in the top 5 points again this season. This guy throws nearly exclusively all braid. Mm-hmm. And there was a season or two that I was doing that. And I then got away and I went to almost all floral for a lot of my presentations. I then got angry with that. I found a balance in there. Now, most of my cranking, I try to keep floral going, for the most part, but I won't throw anything above a 17-pound floral personally, just because I hate the knot tying that happens. I feel like it gets brittle with that. But at any rate, point is, I love hearing, and that's one cool thing about our sport is that just when you think it's this way, there'll be exceptions that prove that no, it's more where you're comfy, man. And there's so much more going on out there.
Well, speaking about straight braid, she fished straight braid, still prefers to fish straight braid on a Ned.
Yeah. I actually got away from the Ned for a little bit. That he used to call me the one trick pony or whatever, because if I use something that season and it's working, I just stick with it. He switches tackle constantly. Yep. I just switch colors. That's all I do. I do the same bait, but I do different colors. But I learned with straight braid on a Ned because I can feel it.
Everything. Yeah.
What's going on. Yeah. And so I started throwing the Ned a few weeks ago off the kayak at a friend's lake we were invited to, and I was not hooking up right with the fish, and I couldn't remember like what is my deal, like this is my go-to or whatever, and then I realized I had a leader on and I wasn't braid, and I told him that's why I wasn't hooking up with the fish.
I know I sound like I'm my wife's like hype man, like I'm her flavor or something like that.
We talked about it before this,
but like the thing with the drop shot is there's a lot of, put it to you like this, like when you're fishing a jig, just a standard jig, not like a football head or anything like that, it's pinpointing targets, right? Mm-hmm. You're not covering water. You're looking at, whether it's a lay down or something like that. Now, if you're using a football head, now you're casting out, you're dragging it in. With a drop shot, for me, the way that I fish it, I have to know there's fish. It's the same concept as a jig. I'm pinpointing exact stuff, and it's been deadly over the years. What I'll do is I'll find a bait. I've always called it seek and destroy. I'll find a bait that I can cover water with, and then I'll find a way to pick them apart once I find them. The difference with me and Leslie is if she knows the general area they're in, she's patient enough to search with a drop shot, meaning each little tiny crevice, she'll fish it. And then I'll give you another one where her patience, her zen, her vibe or whatever is different. What's the deepest you'll fish a weightless Senko?
A weightless Senko?
Yeah.
I'm not probably a great person to ask on this. About probably 10 feet, to be honest with you. I can't wait that long.
I would say at 10 feet, you're in probably the top 5 percentile I can't do it past 2, like two, maybe 3. She can do it in 15 to 20 if she has to.
Eek. That's actually one of my favorite. One of my favorite fishing techniques.
And I don't know how you do it. Can you explain your thought process when you do that?
So you're gonna have the champ give away all her.
There's a lot of things that
they're not gonna go do this.
Yeah, nobody's gonna do this.
So my favorite place to do this is around buoys or around chunk rock, so if you can imagine, the chunk rock comes down, there's the water, and then the water is about 15 feet deep. The chunk rock keeps going down. There's always that there's always the stopping point to where it meets the flat, right? There's the crease right there or whatever.
Transition.
Yeah. So what I do in my mind is I picture, okay, guess what? The little fish, the little friends like to hang out in the rocks, in the chunk rock, but the big mamas, they like to hang out right in that transition. So what I do is I take my weightless soft plastic and I'll cast parallel in that direct, I'll find the depth on my depth finder. Yeah. And then I'll cast it as far as I can. And then I let it just sink. And then what I'll do is I'll slowly bring it to me along that transition. And more than 90% of the time I get somebody.
There's people that won't even Carolina rig. There's nobody that's going to do that. And the thing that I think that's so cool about it, I've seen her do it. I can't tell you how many times. And when it's on, it's one of those things that nothing else is gonna. When it's the deal, it's the deal.
Right.
I don't care, I'm not doing it. I don't. You know what I mean?
Agreed.
I would rather catch fish any other way than that. And she's not impatient with it. She just sticks with it. And it's the other thing that's cool is, and again, this is me being my wife's Flavor Flav. She's talking about a transition. She's visualizing a transition. I could tell you, I didn't teach her any of that. And the terminology and stuff when we're like transition, she just goes, "That's where my friends hang out."
That's where the big ones are.
And it's funny to see it all take place in real time and watch her break something down. And then I'm like, I'm over here with live scope going, I'll show you where they're at. I'll show you where they're at, whatever. And she has no interest in it. No interest whatsoever. It's like when I first got Active Target, which mind you, she got for me.
Yeah. I did. I bought it as a gift for the reigning champ.
When I first got Active Target, there's a little pond that we fish that hasn't been found by Fish Brain or anything else yet.
Yeah.
And it's going to be found sooner or later, but it's a very special place right now. I was dying to get her out there to show her. No interest whatsoever. And I think, and I'm not going to speak for you, but I think one of those things. It's like when you read a book and then you watch the movie. Like, dude,
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
it's like the fate. I just.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you see the California club?
I did.
You have to choose one or the other. Is that really a thing?
Look, I'm very adamant in these areas. That's asinine. Come on, get out of the Stone Ages. These are change. We talked about this a little bit. We touched on there is a good old boy type mentality with our sport, and unfortunately, when new things come along that they maybe don't fully understand 100%, or they think they do. If they fully understood it, they'd understand that this doesn't put more fish in your boat.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That device does not put more fish in the boat or the kayak.
Right.
What it does is make you more efficient when you learn how to use it. Yeah. It cuts down time. In my opinion, that's all these devices do. You could say the same thing when it comes to side scan. When it comes to these, side scan allows us to be more efficient to where I don't have to pass over a hump or a log with my traditional sonar now. I can run 50, 60 feet away from it down a shore and I can go, there's one, and I can run over there. The image quality and not that I like them because I don't prefer using Humminbird, but their side scan, no one can argue that is ridiculous detail they show on theirs. You can see fish all day long.
Yeah.
You see them in real time as you pass by them.
Mm-hmm.
The Panoptic stuff. Yeah. I think it's a cultural thing that, man, it's talk about Pandora's box. I mean, don't you think? I mean, the moment you start, okay, well, this isn't allowed if you're going to use this. Right. What's next? Berkeley Maxent not allowed because fish hold on and their scientists have proved it. But that's not fair. It's like, come on.
It's funny. I won my first tournament that I used with Active Target. I won, right? And it played a key role. It really did. I found fish. I found fish deeper than I normally would have fished, and then I picked them apart. I mean, it was For Horsetooth, I think I got 82 inches is what it was for Horsetooth. Which,
wow.
I mean, I had them dialed. Well, the thing that's funny is I had them dialed in pre-fishing on something completely different, and then
Is that pre-fishing thing?
Yeah,
I'm just kidding.
It just so happened that I used the technology to win, but then I could tell you the next 2 or 3 tournaments, it cost me dearly because I wasn't listening to instincts anymore. I was looking at a screen, and anybody who hasn't utilized the technology that thinks it's like this cure-all, dude, when it's good, it's really good. But
Sure.
when it's bad, it's a time suck like no other, and it could cost you. It's that thing. Like my goal for next season is to be more zen, is first and foremost, right?
Yeah.
But 2 is to continue to refine the balance of guts and technology.
Yep.
Just my gut
That's
feeling
what
and
I
technology.
told you, huh?
What?
When I made you mad and I told you, did you forget how to fish?
Yeah, she told me that at Trinidad. Actually, did you forget how to fish? Because I was going past brush piles.
The champ with the steaming words.
And this is pre-champ too.
I think something happened to where did the battery die or something, and I said, so wait a second, did you forget how to fish? And oh man.
No, I don't remember. I don't think the battery died, but I do. I looked at. It was
almost like
I found fish and I couldn't get them to go. Right. So it was one of those things to where the age-old question: if you find fish, or you never leave fish to find fish.
Trinidad was like that this last year. I didn't fish the CKFC one. I did the CKB one, and yeah, Trinidad I was finding them too, and you just could not convince them to bite.
I don't know why Trinidad hasn't shown out the way it normally does the last couple of years, but Trinidad is one of the best fisheries in the state by far. Like so actually this is the first CKFC that we went to. We had a horrible Airbnb, but this is before Leslie was out in the kayaks.
Yeah.
I caught a 5-pound smallie pre-fishing that year.
Jeez.
And then the next year we went out and we pre-fished together for a little bit. The day before, I caught a 5-pound smallie there. And it's
and
and then the tournament day, it was tough. It's an amazing, amazing lake. I hope we keep scheduling tournaments, because there's going to be a tournament where it's going to take, dude, it wouldn't shock me if 90.
Wow. That would be nice for our waters out here.
Yeah.
For sure. So let's get into some of that. Let's briefly talk here about, we have the Colorado Kayak Fishing Club. For those of you who don't know, that's the CKFC. They are probably the state's largest kayak fishing club. One caveat about this club: it's great for people that are brand new all the way to that are people that have been doing this for a long time. They're very wide range, and they don't permit motors in their competition. They allow it in practice, but not in competition. Which I have my opinions on that whole side of things, but regardless, awesome group of people. Was that the first club, Eric, that you got involved in the state? Because I know CKB's only been around since like 2020, 2021, something like that.
Yeah, so I was on the first board of directors for CKFC when we first started tournaments. Super lucky. Dave Kuzer, and I'm probably going to leave somebody out with the board, but you got Johnny Wagenka was the president, Dave Kuzer was the tournament director, and I was the sponsor coordinator.
Nice.
But we all worked together to get it off the ground. And originally, it was the very first tournament was a trout tournament. Believe it or not.
Yep.
And we had it was like a multi-species after that, and then as soon as we went bass and we had a bass series, it was like, all right, dude, I'm in. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Or a trout tournament, it's still cool, and we want to do more of the multis before, but it was that second season in the Boyd tournament I was talking about. And I'll tell you, Scott Brand's the dirty dog that he is. I had a good showing that first tournament. And we go in, and Scott Brands goes, "What'd you get?" I don't know. It was like 82, 83. It was a good day. And he goes, "Yes, I beat you. That's all I wanted to do." It was the first time I ever met him.
Oh, right.
If you go on his tourney profile, it says Ogre.
Yeah.
Ogre Slayer on it.
Yeah.
Eric didn't know it said that on there. I go, "Did you know?" Because Eric's nickname is the Ogre, but
yeah.
I go, did you know Scott has the ogre slayer on his
A dirty
thing?
dog.
And he had no idea it was on there until I pointed it
Well,
out.
in a little backstory to that, so I've been an outdoor writer out here for a long time, and then at that point in time, I actually had a podcast with my friend Matt Mascarenas that we actually started doing live in 2016.
That's
It was
awesome.
like the second that I knew live was a thing, I went to a lake out here and I caught a fish live, and then we did a podcast. And I remember the first podcast we did live, 2016, people knew what podcasts were.
Sure.
But I had a guy ask me if I could see him on his toilet like he could see me when he was watching. So, I mean, we were really, really early. Being that I've been a writer and some of this stuff out here for so long, I think there's always kind of a target on my back. Anybody, when you have a platform,
you are known in many of the fishing circles. Yes, sir. That much is certain. And I think the other, you take it so well. I mean, it was easy to get to know you as a rookie this year myself. It was easy to meet you guys at the tournaments there. You're very friendly. So yeah. And who doesn't want to be known as an ogre slayer, man? I mean, come on.
But it's that thing with the culture out here. It's if you love fishing,
I'm an ogre slayer.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah, you are an ogre tamer.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, but the culture out here is such, and I'll tell you what this came from, with me wanting to write and me wanting to do all that stuff that kind of crosses over to this. When I was a little kid out here, we didn't have Bass Pro Shops. We didn't have any of that. We had mom and pop tackle shops, and I was a little Joe Dirt looking fellow, a little freckle faced kid. And it was rare that somebody would help me. It was rare that somebody would talk to me. So I got a chip on my shoulder, and I could tell you there was a Bass Pro Shops off Sheridan that was like, it wasn't the Bass Pro Shops. It was like some affiliate deal or something.
Right.
I turned 18 years old. They gave me a credit card. I had a $500 limit. I drove straight there. I maxed it out. And I remember the old guy that was working there, dude, I was so excited. I didn't call and activate the card. So the dude runs the card one time. And then I said, oh, I didn't know you had to call and activate it. And he said, it's not my fault. You don't pay your bills. I'm not running it again. And that was the taste I had in my mouth with kind of the industry. And then, being from Colorado, I would go to rivers. When a River Runs Through It came out, every person that identified as a yuppie was now a fly fisherman, and they didn't know the difference between a mayfly and a rooster, but they would shoot dirty looks on the river. So I've had this huge chip on my shoulder for many, many years. And I was like 24 or 25 when I first started writing. And I thought, if anybody reads my stuff, or if I can help anybody, I'm always going to do it. And
That's
then
awesome.
Then you get involved in like the tournament fishing communities or any community, and you're just like,
that's how you met Scott, right?
Yeah, Scott's great. Yeah, that's how I met Scott. But it's one of those things where it's like, I remember that feeling of, I don't know if we're going to have to bleep this, but I remember that feeling of piss on you. You know what I mean? If you want to treat me like I'm less than, and it's like one of the things that I believe with every ounce of my being is, if you started fishing yesterday, but you love it, we are one and the same. Period.
Awesome.
There's nothing different there. And I'm looking at the champ with her big brown hair.
I'm like, well,
no, I agree, man. There is some common ground, and that's the way it should be.
Yeah.
I have found, over my years, that there are many circles in the fishing industry, out of the boat side, tournament side, that are that way, but there also maybe is equally amount of not. It's not as I have no problem saying, I don't mean any disrespect to either side. It's just, it's the, water's wet, sky's blue. Mm-hmm. And the kayak community is just, right now at its current state, let's hope it stays that way. But right now at its current state is just very, for the most part, very open, very friendly. And it's a matter of, hey, let's take care of each other when we're out there. I know if I see another kayaker, and if I'm in trouble, if something's going on, I know I'm going to be all right. There's going to be someone that'll be there, type thing.
We all cheer each other on at the end.
Totally.
Everybody's high-fiving, and
you genuinely get happy for someone.
Yeah.
I mean, the competitor in me was like, dude, I got my tail kicked by this lake, and I've been doing it long enough where I agree 100% with you. I don't compete against you. I'm competing against myself and trying to unravel this mystery. But at the same, there's always the lizard brain, on you over there. But I loved watching you, just stomp the field, and where everybody else is driving the struggle bus, you're just like doink, doink.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's so freaking awesome.
Well, and you made a point about Paul Roth. I mean, he's
a stick. Dude's a stick. Yeah.
I keep an eye on what he's doing because he too will work one area all day. And I watched people change, locations, but Paul genuinely stays in an area, and then he's just good. But he made it a point at the end of this tournament to come around and make sure he acknowledged the fact that, because in one of the tournaments I told him, I just keep getting second place. And he's like, he told me, your time will come. Your time will come. And he made sure he came around and shook my hand or whatever and was like, I told you your time would come. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. And then we have our picnic this weekend too for the
CKFC. Yeah.
Yep. I'll be joining you guys there. Yeah.
Nice. They're giving away a Hobie, I think, and everyone's going to hang out. That's the good parts. Yeah.
In kayak fishing, how it grew kind of at the grassroots level, you know what I mean? For instance, I'll tell you, I get nervous when the board of directors in clubs change, like for CKFC. We've been very, very fortunate with the tournament directors, the presidents, everything we've had. But that's a little bit about the difference that I've seen with the two clubs is CKFC is a nonprofit. So it's one of those things with your entry fee in the CKFC, the payout might not be like CKB, but your entry fee is going to support something.
Yep.
Right. But that's I love that. But conversely, that's one of the reasons why I love CKB so much is Mr. Strawbridge and Mrs. Strawbridge. They've cultivated a culture there that's so special. And I don't think he's going to get tired of it anytime soon running it. At least I hope he doesn't. But it's like, I love the clubs and the people equally. But knowing how it started, like you don't start kayak fishing because you think fame is imminent.
Sure.
You start kayak fishing because it's like, well, A, like I don't want to deal with boat stuff anymore. B, the other thing, Scott Brands, you know what? If you watch this, you dirty dog, I'm going to give him a little bit of credit too. I think he won AOY on a paddle yak.
Yeah.
Like in an old school kayak. And it's that thing where my first kayak, I got in a send and I traded a welder for it, and I could compete. If you got $200 and you're on Craigslist, you can compete. Get a PFD, but you can compete.
Yep.
Whereas in the bass boat world, I mean, if we're in the trust tree and everything, many people in the bass boat world are my friends, and I love them very, very dearly.
Sure,
but there's not a lot of people that are starting off, without $100,000 spent, maybe more. Let's be honest. Like if you're fishing
between truck, between boat, I mean, it's ridiculous the cost where it's gone, and it's not going any different. And God forbid you need service, that because you will, boat break out another 1,000. That's what boat stands for. And it's tough.
If you look at the bow of their boats now, if somebody has the whole Hummingbird set up with 360 forward-facing sonar, everything else, like you're just to start, you're looking at a lot. My sweet lady next to me, if we break down her sonar, it was $60. I think it was $60 on the transducer, and then I think Caleb, we got it from Caleb up at Shields. What was it, $400?
I won the gift card.
Oh yeah, so you won the gift card, but
I won a gift card from the club for signing up early, and then I went and bought that from Caleb.
So total sonar is probably about $500, maybe.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In that first tournament that I fished, where the Ogre Slayer got me, which mind you, I've got that dirty dog quite a bit the last couple of years. You could ask him. I was using a Lowrance HDI 4.
Nice.
Same kind of deal. So it's like, It feels like a working person's sport more so than a have versus the have-nots.
I made this statement at the beginning of this season that when people ask me, are you sure you're going to be all right making this, leaving your boat behind? And it's like, listen, I'll miss it. Okay. I had the pleasure, the opportunity that I will never take for granted to have a brand new, bass boat that I had picked up in 2020. And it was the Nitro Z21. And regardless, unless someone's been in one of those, they don't understand. This thing is a fishing machine. It was just I had a padded front deck, 96-inch beam on this thing, handled big water, little water, didn't matter. This thing was a Cadillac driving around out there. But the price tag piece, trying to do this as a business, when we got serious about that, I had more money just in the graphs from my bow to console than what I have with everything. And I've got live scope on my unlimited. I've got 9-inch Garmin, on there. I had more just in electronics on the bass boat than I had in my entire kayak setup.
Yeah.
Sitting there. So it's like, no. And to recharge batteries, boy, that sure is a lot easier than going to the gas station. I'll tell you that. Yeah. I can plug in as I'm driving down the road. I can literally charge my batteries, on my kayak. So yeah, there's the entry to go and compete. I mean, at the end of the day, a love for the outdoors, is what this is all centered in. But there is something also that comes with the competitive side. You know what I mean? And if you do get bit by that bug, like both of you have, you never get rid of it, man. The competitive, and when you can match those two worlds together,
right?
The kayak offers, that very ability to achieve those things. Like you said, the working person can actually make this happen, and put it together.
So our youngest is 15 years old, and once all three of them are feet firmly planted on the ground and stuff like that, I think we're going to make a run at quite a few national tournaments and circuits and stuff like that, because it's like, why not? You know what I mean?
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's not a hopefully. It's happening, Jack.
That's awesome.
Older than you. So.
Oh God, no, Well, it's funny.
Is the champ a cougar, or is that what we're
Actually, I am.
So is my champ. So don't worry.
That's funny.
It's funny. So it was the first year that we could qualify for the Tournament of Champions out here, and so this was back when it was at Lake Fork. So this is, I don't know, 2016, 2017, something like that. I qualified for that, and then Eric, the middle one, he got appendicitis.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things where it was like, I really want to go, but there's no way. You know what I mean? He was sick for a couple of weeks in the hospital and all that stuff. But I've qualified and had something happen. Like last year, we didn't get word where the classic was going to be until a little bit later. And then when we did, we got COVID.
Yeah.
So this year with her going, I think that she's going to get bit by the bug on like the traveling side and fishing against different people, looking at different water. And I hope I qualified for the All-American too. So
I was getting ready to say, I would highly encourage, man, if you're looking to fish against, some of the best anglers, that you're going to find in the Midwest, and you don't feel like making a 22-hour road trip, the All-American offers that national. I mean, their schedule this year is off the hook. It is so exciting to watch where they're going. You're going to go from Texas to Iowa to Arkansas to, it's beautiful. They go all through central US.
Yeah.
And their fees and payout, Joshua Booth and Tyler Cole, the two tournament directors there, they run a phenomenal series. Yeah, we should absolutely communicate, because I am 100% in on the All-American. I triple qualified myself in for this one here, and I am absolutely flying the CKB banner for this one here. So that would be. I was telling James last night we should work together to see what sort of, because I mean CKFC is going to have a team. I would love to make sure that at least CKB has at least 5 to 7 anglers, because I think they take like the top 5 angler, and that's how we get measured against the other clubs out there. So it'd be cool to see both Colorado clubs being represented properly out there. That would be awesome.
Yeah, that'd be really cool. Speaking about somebody that came from the boat world, I'm sure you talked about it with James. I remember his first tournament at Boyd, and this is somebody who's fished boat tournaments for a long time. Very, very accomplished angler. He struggled the first event. He goes, dude, I don't know. Like, I could feel almost in his voice that he was like, dude, I'm going back to the boat. And then it was like 2 months later that he won it was the first Hobie event that we had at Pueblo. Maybe I'm getting my time frame wrong. Maybe it was a year or something like that. But from him to go from the boat side and initially struggle in the kayak to then, being our guy for the club, it's just been so cool, because it's one of those things. He's just as competitive as we are.
100%.
But he finds a balance with caring for all of us, and him and his wife. It's one of those things. Like, I can't say enough about him. It's been
agreed.
It's been truly, truly great to. And it's that thing, like we're talking about at the end of the tournaments. It's like about 1 o'clock, especially if I didn't catch him the way I want to hear how everybody else did.
Right. Yeah. Right. Well, and I couldn't agree more. He takes. And we all know there was an opportunity we had to not break rules on any level, but kind of bend them with how many guys, people we could send to the Classic.
Yeah.
I loved the way he erred on the side, which both decisions could have been fine, I'm sure. But I love the direction that integrity piece that he was worried about, that he wants to make sure that our club stays clean, never a question, that nope, we only had 18. We're not going to, pay for 2 more to send another. We're going to do the 1, because unfortunately that's what we've been dealt with this year.
And we were actually talking about that. I went up to Eric and I said, did you see the conversation they're having about, paying for another one? And then I said, but he doesn't feel good about it. And I remember you saying, yeah, that's the way to go.
I'm now.
Although I do have to bring up the fact that he said, I'm probably going to jinx myself.
And right?
Yeah.
And he was. Unreal.
And I'll be the weirdo. I tried to compare something to basketball earlier. I think kayak fishing is a lot like golf. We penalize ourselves. Nobody else has to do it. I actually did that this year. I was looking forward to the KBF event at Chatfield, like so stoked about it. I ordered, I can't remember what I ordered. I think it was a battery for my active target. And while I was waiting for it, we were about a week out from the event. I was like, you know what? I'm going to go run through a couple spots. So I took my Lund. So I get out there. I run through a couple spots. I don't even remember if I caught fish. I just ran through a couple spots. I get back to the ramp. I do see one of the guys, I'm assuming it was from Utah. I had a trailer and a nice giddy up, but he didn't see me or anything. And I get home and I'm super excited because I know Chatfield.
Oh.
So I get home and I start reading through the rules.
I was going to say, I think I know where you're going with this.
Yep.
They changed in February.
It's so the time where you have to fish out of the vessel that you're going to be competing in was 2 weeks. So
2 weeks, not 1 week.
Yeah. I called Chad Hoover right away and I was like, hey dude, here's the deal. I broke the rules. He was very, very kind and they gave me the entry fee back. I told her, I said, I'm disqualified. They're going to take the entry fee, which I didn't care about the entry fee. I wanted to compete. But it's one of those things. Nobody saw me. Right. You know what I mean? But as soon as I read those rules and this is the ego driven part of fishing is I could tell you a dude from out of state wasn't beating me that week. Flat out. Like I had a spot that was away from everybody else. That was my A spot and my B and C were just as solid.
Awesome.
But if I would have competed, I would have hated myself.
Right.
You would have been like the boys with the lead in the walleye belly.
Weight gate?
Yeah.
I think, the way I look at it is any sort of, if you're not fishing clean through everything, then your win is nothing.
But that's the thing is we police ourselves and James going Like,
it doesn't feel right.
this doesn't feel right to me, to his own peril, like we talked about.
Totally.
But to me, like, character is one of the most important things in the world. And what's the difference between reputation? Reputation is what other people think you are. Character is who you are. Yep. And him showing his character, I just thought, like, I'm glad he's leading us, right?
I said the same thing to myself driving home. It's about 2.5 hour drive home for me from there. And on the way home, I'm like, you know what? This is why for next season, when we're choosing between, are we KBF, Bass, All-American, local trails? This is one of the reasons why that we are absolutely going to commit to the CKB. For next season. I think it's important that we maintain local presence. I love that club a ton. I love the CKFC. I love the people over there. I just have a beef with the motor thing. I personally feel that when you restrict motors, you are restricting the field.
Yeah.
When you allow motors, you allow everyone to be there. And truth be told, our angler of the year in the motor allowed deal was won by a guy with no motor.
Yeah.
Trev won this thing.
I'll give you a little history on my role with that.
With what?
With the motors. So the motors came up, and this is why there was people against it, and initially myself included.
Yep.
And I'll explain why. So when this first started happening with the kayak scene taking off, and I saw the writing on the wall with this early. Right. It was like the cost of entry was good. The platforms were good. And actually Dave Kuzer fished out of a new canoe. And I got to sit in his, and I was on the Hobie team and stuff like that, but the new canoe is a fine fishing platform. Like you're talking about stability and, but I saw the stability on different platforms. At first it was Hobie, then you have new canoe, then you have native, and you got all these kayaks. And it was getting to be the point where you weren't in a skinny little boat anymore. This was going to be a thing. So Chad Hoover's been in the game for a very long time, but what had happened was they weren't allowed nationally. Motors weren't allowed in anything. And then Torqeedo sponsored the KBF. And when Torqeedo sponsored it, I was on the board, and at the time, nobody was putting motor guides on the bow or anything like that. It was Torqeedo, which is, I don't know how much they are now, but at the time it was like
they're a lot.
Yeah. So I was like, well, why did we get into the kayak game? You know what I mean? And then, so what we came up with the CKFC is if somebody needs a motor, they could use, and they could have changed the rules by now. But it's actually one of the things, the yin and the yang, that I love so much about what we have in Colorado.
Yeah.
Is if you do have an ailment, whatever it might be, which, we could argue that somebody, if they got a bad knee or something, it's like, dude, I just want to compete. I don't want to show you my medical records or whatever. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But that was the idea behind it initially. Now, somewhere in the past, I don't know, 3 years, 4 years, it's changed. And now trolling motor companies, like, I think it's the motor guide that a lot of folks use, right?
XI3.
Yeah. So then it changed a little bit, and now it's one of those things to where now it's a norm, right? It's a thing on the Hobie side. It's a norm. I remember AJ with Hobie. He was fishing KBF in a 17 with the trolling motor and the power poles and all that stuff. I do like that one side you can have motors, one side that you can't. I don't think it's going to last.
Right.
I think maybe we have a year, maybe. I think there's going to be a new board of directors. I think they're going to change it, because if you look at the national, anything that we want to qualify for nationally, they allow motors, right? Yep. So it's the grassroots thing. And we're very fortunate in our water. It doesn't matter if you have a motor. Like it really, I've never been beaten and thought, oh, it's because they have a motor.
Right.
Never.
No,
you know what I mean?
For me personally, what it is that the platform that I'm fishing out of right now, I've worked very hard to get as hands-free as possible to get me back to my bass boat roots. And I have nearly achieved it. I have the wireless foot pedal in my kayak. I can literally be fishing down a shoreline and never have to touch my remote. I can use my foot. The moment I hook in, I can hit my spot lock. My boat will hold itself in place. I can deal with the fish, get it in the net, get my little friend in the boat, get the photo shoot, my professional hand model, maneuver. And get that all done. and then I'm back off running again. In the new canoe setup, to put a pivot drive in this kayak, I literally have to remove my wireless foot pedal mount. So I got to get that out of there. My steering, that I have right now, I actually made my rudder static. I swapped out one of the bolts and put a screw through it so that it's just a static rudder on the back. So I have to remove that whole assembly, put the pivot drive assembly back on. I'll have to go back to actually steering with a hand lever. And then my whole pivot drive pedal system is a tower that fits right in the front, and I'm going to lose about that much deck space. This is not a quick swap out. So for me, it's the logistical piece of, I'm going to go out fishing those events completely different. The very first event that I did, I had the motor on the back and at Horsetooth. You were talking about James, his first experience. I went to Horsetooth this season, my first event that you won, I believe. And I got to tell you, I was so freaking frustrated. I wanted to throw, my paddle, across the lake, because at one time I was back at the entrance to the marina, the second entrance, like the secondary point there. And I hooked into a smallie. I killed the motor, my EPS drive on the back. I get the smallie up, I'm working, and I'm fumbling through on how to get this thing in the net, get the hook out, get this, my pole, don't throw it in the lake. I'm going through this whole thing, and next thing you know, I feel something bump, and I turn around, and it's one of those mooring balls. I had drifted the whole way back. I was about to run into a sailboat. And so now I got a fish in a camera, and now the fish is going back in because I'm like, shit, I got to get out of here, I'm about to run into a boat. So it was just such a fighting maneuver of all the moving parts for a new guy. I got my butt handed to me after having a great practice. My pre-fishing days, I felt pretty good about what we found up there. I literally got out of the next two events. I canceled out because I was going to go to the CKFC, but because of the fact that I knew I was going to be using a pedal drive, and I was also mentally just not ready for this, I backed out and then forced myself to go fishing, go fish for like a month to get my head straight. And then I came back and things were, a lot cleaner. Things were a lot better. But it's the kayak game, and not to go off on a different tangent, but the kayak game is a completely different world. Jody Queen gave me some, we've interviewed him on our podcast, and he gave me a great story that he posted publicly. He's like, after his first event, Mike Iaconelli walked up to me, shaking his head, going, "Man, I've got a lot to learn about these kayak deals." And I'm like, all right, that's pretty solid. I don't feel so bad, struggling, out there, because it's a different world. There's so much more going on that you got to pay attention to.
Well, Leslie was talking about it. I don't remember exactly when you were talking about it. It was the last couple of weeks. Catching a fish is only half the battle. Right? You have to have a system. And,
that's what we were talking about.
You have a system, like we have our nets on different sides, but your system when you catch one.
Yeah, I told him that half the battle, it's taken 3 seasons to get to the point where I'm at, where I feel really confident. Is like this next season, I'm just like, let's catch fish. So the first season was figuring out how to not fall over on your kayak, right?
Yep.
And then the second season was I've never been on these lakes before, and I have to figure out this water or whatever. And then the third season was, I know where my net goes, I know where my camera goes, I know where my catch board goes. You know what I mean? Like it's every and it takes, for me, I can't say for everybody else, but it takes a system. You hook up, my net has to be on the left. I grab my net, I bring them in, I unhook it, put it under my leg, and then it's like, it's a system. And my rod, always put the hook on the hook and put it where it needs to be before I even bring my friend out of the net, and then and then the release or whatever, but I'm always aware of where I'm floating, or if I need to, back up to something or whatever. Because if the wind's blowing, like you said, you could be all the way up against a boat and
Yep.
you're too busy looking at, your fish or whatever. Or you can not take the hook out or do a system, and then you're all, it takes you 20 minutes because everything's hooked up on everything else and you just wasted all that time.
Well, whenever I see little people, and what I mean by little is smaller than me, right? I'm 6 foot something, 3 something. And for me to measure a fish, it's like I'm doing a butterfly thing with my legs, and it's just like
crisscross applesauce.
I've been very, very fortunate that I haven't jumped a fish in 2 years. No, 2 or 3 years actually. But there was a tournament at Boyd that Big John Mazurko, I think he took second. Maybe he won it. Super, super cold. We used to have events out here with CKFC in April.
Nice.
So it was super, super cold, and it was one of those deals where if you got a limit, you were top 5. So I had 3 fish. I make it to a spot that I fish at Boyd. I catch, it wasn't a big fish, it was like 14, jumps off the board. And I'm just like beyond livid. 3 casts later, I catch one that's 15. It jumps off the board.
Oh my gosh.
I still took 5th with 3. That's how tough the fight was. But if I would have landed those 2 fish, it would have been a lot different. I wouldn't have won it because Big John killed it, but I would have been in second easy.
Right. So at Pickwick, I was fishing just outside of a no wake zone. There was a big rock wall, and I'm fishing along that. In the morning, I had hit off I had a 5XD that I was running along the rocks on its pretty quick slope there. Hit a couple good fish, some of the best quality I'd found that whole time. Well, I was studying my map. I was looking real close, and I had my XI3 turned off. Wasn't really paying close attention to where, I was kind of drifting. And I got to tell you, Pickwick is on the Tennessee River, but there was like little to no current at all in this place. Well, one of the boats comes out. This bass boat comes out of the no wake zone around this wall, looks right at me and just throttles. And I'm like, for the first time I was like, oh, you're that guy, huh?
Yeah.
So I remember looking at him going, man, and I said a bad word out loud. And I go back to looking at my map. I wasn't paying attention to where I was. I was so close to those rocks. His wake swamped me. I mean, just water went in and threw me up onto the rocks and just lodged me into the rocks. So here my motor goes popping up, my rudder goes popping up, and I'm stuck on these rocks. Now I'm inventing cuss words for homie, and I'm like, come back while I'm still here. Yeah. And so, it took me quite a while to get my 12.5-foot kayak off of those rocks and make sure my motor wasn't tore up. But it's, for me, the motor piece and that paying attention inside the kayak, you have to be so much more aware of your surroundings and your vessel. And that's the part I love about it, because I am more in tune with, I didn't realize how many times wind changes direction in a day.
Yeah.
It's like, I thought, well, in the morning it's this way, in the afternoon it's this. No, dude, in the morning it's about 5 different directions that'll move. I can tell you because my kayak's getting blown around with it. Mm-hmm. In the afternoon, maybe 4 different directions. Your surface, clarity, the clarity of the water, the just everything around you. You are so, in a kayak, I believe you are so much more in tune with what's going on in a given area. And I love that, that aspect of it. So it's cool to hear those pieces and the system. Yeah, man, you gotta, as you become more accomplished, and at least I learned at a pace this season, it's like, I got to get a system figured out quick. Now I have one that I feel real confident in that. And that only happened maybe in the last 2 events, of this season. Like, okay, now I think I'm where I need to be, but
and the thing about the kayak fishing, I sound like my dad talking about the Facebook, but the thing about kayak fishing is, when you talk about
boys in your little boats,
when you talk about bass boats, right? And I don't want to discredit it, because I think it's, we're doing the same thing. But like MLF and BASS, it's become something different, right?
Totally. Totally.
So on the kayak side, every choice is amplified. So when you run in a big boat, you could start at one side of the lake and go, okay, no, they're over here. I wanted X, Y, and Z. I didn't find it. I'm going over here. In a kayak, when you make a similar run, well, let's be real, a run that's 10 minutes or 15 minutes, because you're not going from one side of the lake to the other.
You're talking about pedaling.
Yeah. Even with a motor, what do you top out at? 4.5, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So even with the trolling motor, you're limited. So your choices are so amplified, and it boils down to one or two choices.
Yep.
You can go from, especially in a club and I'm not saying that there's not killers on both sides, but the difference with CKB and CKFC is on the CKB side, top to bottom, you have killers, and those killers have room. You know what I mean? When we're forced to kind of pile in and shoehorn in a little bit, you're limited to it's a different thing, right?
Yep.
Generally speaking, kayak fishing in a tournament, you could replay Monday morning quarterback, any tournament you've ever been in. One or two choices is the whole entire deal. Where, in bass boat tournaments or our little league night that we do, like, you could screw up 5 or 6 times and you're fine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And you can one of the things like Lake of the Ozarks, Table Rock, Truman, when you're down on these things, if the bite is on a main lake point, well, there's about 50 miles worth of main lake points you can go explore. For us, we're going to get 2, maybe 3 of them that we can effectively get to, fish properly, and, make it back. And, so yeah, but obviously that'll, but it's the point where you got to choose your area, you got to do your work. And then, like you said, leave no meat, man. You got to pick it apart and become that versatile angler out there, and learn to work through it. So, well, listen, guys, this has been phenomenal. I'm more than likely going to split this thing into 2 different podcasts because we've gone for like 2 hours.
Yeah.
But this has been absolute gold. You guys are awesome.
Yeah,
I am.
thanks
Yeah.
It's been really
great.
fun.
No, this is I love speaking with like-minded individuals out there, and like I said, you guys are something very, very special. Number one, not just a whole pile of champs sitting over here, but just great ambassadors.
I have our trophies right here. Do you want to?
You
see
do?
them?
Yes, please.
Yeah. We can hold them side by side.
They just so happen to be there.
They're right here.
Yeah.
Hold on.
I didn't know she was doing this.
There's yours.
I'm not complaining about it, but I didn't know she was doing it.
That's awesome.
Before we mount him on the wall.
Right.
And here's mine. Whoa.
That's another awesome thing. Colorado Kayak Bass, man. Look at that. Those are phenomenal.
We got a baby one too. So we got 3 of them.
No, you have a baby one.
Yeah.
I haven't, because I was a rookie this year, baby.
Yeah.
That's one thing they didn't do this year is that we didn't look at the rookies that were out there, which that was interesting. Maybe when we get more numbers, they'll start looking at that. But James said something last night that I thought was notable, is that he wants to see the CKB pick up with a little bit of numbers, but at the same note, it is kind of nice, like you said, having space to operate on some of these, so, you get into some fisheries like Boyd doesn't fish very big, effectively, you know what I mean? There's a lot of water there, but what's productive, what's not type thing.
Yeah.
You start getting 40, 50 boats, out there, that's going to get crowded in a hurry, on some of those. So
I don't want to hurt feelings. Okay.
Sure.
I really don't want to hurt feelings, but I'm going to say something that's going to hurt feelings. And I don't mean to, because we talked about, I love everybody that fishes. The killers that fish CKB are the people that we're competing against in CKFC.
Right.
There's 15 or 20 people. Maybe it extends to 25 sometimes.
Sure.
And I'm not discounting people that are new to the sport and stuff like that, but
sure.
When it comes to CKB, I've never seen a name in those events that I didn't think could win. You know what I mean? In Colorado Kayak Fishing Club, the Bass Series is super, super competitive. But when you have 60 people or 50 people or whatever it is, it's a different thing. And
for sure,
brand new to the sport that's going to get mad that I said that, but it's just a reality. You know what I mean? Like,
I just really,
it's not good. It's not good, bad, or indifferent. It's a different, like you said, it's a different game, when that goes on. And
especially it's a different game, especially if you allow that to bother you on the water.
this is what I have to deal with for a whole year because she's the champ.
And she is I think a mental conditioning coach too, it would appear.
Gotta let that go.
So.
Yeah, I just got to let it go.
That's funny.
Well, because I am a man of many years, I'm going to agree that yes, just let that go, Eric.
Yeah.
Listen, guys, again, I can't thank you enough for taking this. Leslie, you have the entire state behind you and going to be cheering you on at the Classic there, and crossing fingers that no logistic things, get in your way, because that's, talk about a bucket list and an amazing opportunity to just go experience and take it in. That's going to be super, super cool. And we're proud to have, you out there representing all of us.
Yeah, that's exciting. I don't think it sank in yet.
Oh, it probably hasn't.
I'm excited. I'm going into it, like, honestly, completely clueless. I know that might sound funny to some people, but I'm literally just gonna go do it like a bucket list thing. And
like I said, just go be you. You're gonna be fine.
Yeah, and this super cool place we're gonna go, and we'll see what happens. So
awesome. She's dangerous.
Well, and we should probably plan to either have you guys come back on right before that, maybe a month before that or whatever, check in with you, and then of course after we're definitely gonna have to schedule some of those in there. So
yeah.
and let us know if there's anything we can ever do for Eagle Claw, Eric. Absolutely. We're in a Colorado company in the fishing industry. That is a rarity. I'll be remiss if I said there weren't times that I was like, why am I not going and knocking on their door going, hey, I would like to work with you.
Sure,
you're like the only fishing company in the state, I think, right?
Yeah. Well, on the conventional side, we're one of them. But on the fly side, there's
the fly. Yeah.
Well, since what, 1925?
1925. When we come back on again, I got a couple stories about Eagle Claw that
nice.
We talk about pride and the kayak clubs out here. I've knee-high to a grasshopper, Eagle Claw for me, my first rod and reel. I'm very proud to work for the company.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Yeah. I forget about the other kind of fish that are out there. You step outside of bass fishing. I'm like, what? Wait, there's other fish. So awesome. Well, again, you guys, thank you so very, very much. We appreciate all your time, and we will absolutely be checking in with you guys again.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks a ton. It was a blast.
Yeah.